When I first met David, he was everything I had dreamed of. Charming, intelligent, and unbelievably kind. Our love story began like a fairy tale, with long walks, deep conversations, and endless laughter. He made me feel cherished in a way no one ever had before. But what I didn't see coming was that I wasn't just falling in love with him, I was unknowingly stepping into a lifelong relationship with his mother, too. Looking back, the signs were there from the start. He would often say, "My mom and I are really close," and I thought it was sweet. When he told me he had never made a major decision without consulting her, I brushed it off as a sign of respect. But it wasn't just respect, it was dependence. During our courtship, he would cancel dates last minute because his mother needed him. At first, I admired his devotion. "He's such a good son," I told myself. But then I started noticing little things. He never ordered food at a restaurant without calling to check what his mom would recommend. He wouldn't buy a shirt without texting her a picture for approval. He still lived at home at 32, not because he couldn't afford his own place, but because she needed him there. Yet, I was in love. Love makes you rationalize things you should never ignore. When we got engaged, I was overjoyed. I imagined planning the wedding of my dreams. But soon, I realized it wasn't our wedding, it was hers. She took over everything. The dress, she picked it. The guest list, her relatives dominated it. The honeymoon, she decided it wasn't necessary because newlyweds should stay close to family. Every time I tried to assert myself, David would say, "It's just how she is, babe. Let's not upset her." I convinced myself I could handle it. Once we're married, things will change. I walked down the aisle believing I was stepping into a future with my husband. Instead, I had unknowingly married both of them. She had a key to our house. She would drop by unannounced and rearrange things because she knew how David liked them. If I cooked, she would remake the meal, claiming I didn't know his real preferences. If we argued, David would call her to mediate, every single time. One night, I reached my breaking point. We had planned a weekend getaway, our first trip alone since the wedding. But at the last minute, David told me, "Mom isn't feeling well. She wants me to stay." I snapped. "David, she is not sick. She just doesn't want you to leave, and you're letting her control our marriage." He looked genuinely torn. "She's my mom, the only person who's always been there for me. You knew how close we were before we got married." That was the moment I realized the hard truth. I wasn't the most important woman in his life. I never had been. I had two choices: accept that I would always be second place in my own marriage or walk away. But love complicates things. I loved him. I loved us. So instead of leaving, I fought. I stopped tiptoeing around his mother's feelings and started standing up for myself. I told him, "I am your wife. I need you to choose me, not over her, but beside her." It wasn't easy. There were fights, there were tears, and for the first time, David saw what his dependence was doing to us. Slowly, painfully, he set boundaries. He started making decisions without consulting her first. He stopped letting her walk into our home unannounced. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress.